What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
All right, I stepped on my show announcer here. Welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021, a date which will live in infamy. Sorry, Franklin. It is just crazy out there. And we've got a lot to talk about. And as usual, we're going to do news till we run out of news. Then we're going to open up the phone lines. I'm expecting we're probably going to get a lot of very angry callers today over what's going on. Mike is in our control room, keeping us out of trouble. And let's get right on into it. Right now, the big news is that apparently some of the protesters, demonstrators in Washington, D.C. Have gotten into the U.S. Capitol building. Apparently lawmakers were initially told to get under their chairs as a precaution. Now we're getting reports they're being evacuated from the building. Apparently tear gas has been used inside the building as well. Gunshots have been fired. At least one gunshot victim is being evacuated, although it's not clear who fired the shot or who the victim was. And the first thing I thought when I saw this is these are probably agent provocateurs to make the Trump people look bad. And corporate media was ignoring this whole demonstration all day long until the violence broke out. And we are getting reports that there are Antifa people who are wearing MAGA hats and Trump T-shirts and everything, posing as Trump supporters, and they're causing all this ruckus to try and discredit what's happening there. The National Guard is on the scene. Apparently the FBI is being called on in. Even the Secret Service is showing up to try and assist the Capitol Police. So it is total chaos over there right now. Now, John Stadmiller is in Washington, D.C. I can imagine the cell system is probably saturated right now. But we're hoping that during today's broadcast, he's going to call on in. And as soon as he does, we're going to get a report from on the ground. But what we keep seeing on places like Twitter is it's total chaos. It was a huge, huge crowd that showed up. Something the corporate media doesn't want you to see. And every time they show a shot of the protesters, it's always a very narrow angle on the camera, so you can't see how big the crowd is. And it's always low down, so you only get one or two lines of the crowd there. Anyway, let's get on to Georgia. Things are still cooking down there. Of course, the corporate media is already declaring the Democratic sweep there, and the Democrats will control the Senate here. Gabe Sterling basically allowed an extra 3 hours to process mail-in ballots and is saying final results may take a couple of days. Now, here's where things start to look like the general election. Last night, when most of us were going to bed, the GOP candidates were ahead in these runoff races. And apparently, as of this morning, there was this miraculous swing for the Georgia Democrats in one Democrat county. They stopped counting votes for the night and resumed in the morning. We saw that was where a lot of the chicanery was going on in the general election. Georgia voters are already out there sounding the alarm. Apparently, in 3 Republican counties, voters were told that the Dominion voting machines were malfunctioning, just to leave their ballots, and the workers would run them through the machines sometime later on next leap year or something like that. So there's all kinds of red flags about that election, and it was a study in foregone conclusions. The vote riggers weren't going to stop because nobody's there to stop them, is really what it comes down to here. Now, Fulton County blocked a credentialed Republican poll monitor, actually multiple poll monitors, from overseeing the absentee ballots and verifying the signatures, defying a court order to allow them to do that. And so, again, it's the same stuff that we saw back on the general election. Apparently, in Pennsylvania, the state senators are asking for election certification to be delayed due to questionable activities. And as of right now, because of the protesters in the U.S. Capitol, the election certification has been called off. until order can be restored. 117 state legislators from contested battleground states are asking for, again, a delay on the certification of the electoral votes. Now, remember, 7 states sent 2 sets of competing electors to the U.S. Congress. We don't know how they were being handled, but my guess is that the ones that were there for Trump were being treated very, very rudely. Over in Arizona, Senator Ted Cruz is going to object to Arizona's election results here. And of course, the Democrats are out there screaming and crying and, you know, how dare you, how dare you. But the reality is the last 3 times a Republican was elected president of the United States, Democrats in the House of Representatives objected to the electoral votes. The Republican nominee won. So they're getting a bit of their own medicine right back at them here. Now, out in California, there's a new lawsuit by Joshua Crute of Primary Law Group, and they're working on behalf of the Election Integrity Project. And this new lawsuit accuses California officials of rampant election code violations that irreparably contaminated the results of the 2020 election. And so California's 55 electoral votes are being targeted in this lawsuit. Unfortunately, with a totally corrupted court system, I don't know what's really going to happen. And I keep thinking over and over again that quote from John F. Kennedy: when peaceful revolution is impossible, violent revolution is inevitable. And, you know, what's going on at the Capitol right now, if it is a staged incident, it could backflash, because we could see support for this, you know, bloom all across the country. And it's a very, very situation, a very, very crazy situation over there. Now, Edward Solomon, he's an expert on elections, and his analysis of the 2020 election shows thousands of ballots that were switched from Trump in states that he won. So the election fraud was going on in a lot of states, and it just didn't, you know, it didn't produce as much results as the Democrats were really hoping for. Now, Judicial Watch is getting ready to file a lawsuit over 4,700 of Georgia's absentee votes in November election, which were tied to non-residential addresses, which is not supposed to be happening here. Story coming out of stationgossip.com, apparently evidence has surfaced that China was colluding with the Bidens and providing information on how to defeat President Trump in the 2020 election. And from China's point of view, it makes perfect sense. They've got a lock on Biden through Hunter. So of course they want Joe Biden in the White House, because they know they can control him here. Story coming out of Investment Watch blog, just a simple quote, you know, Washington, D.C., this place is crazy already. I saw photos just from yesterday. Now, the reason to think that what we're seeing in the streets around the Capitol right now is a staged event is we saw a lot of, shall we say, preparations here. Apparently, somebody was distributing pallets of bricks today, presumably to be used by radical leftists to throw at Trump rally attendees. Apparently the intelligence certainly suggests there'll be increased crowd sizes. The other one that came on out, somebody located stockpiles of 2x6 lumber and propane tanks on the streets of Washington, D.C. And again, we saw that in some of these Antifa Black Lives Matter rallies where, you know, there were vans that were supplying, you know, boards and things to cause damage with here. Now, the Washington, D.C. police were filmed rushing to stop a group of Trump supporters from setting fire to a Black Lives Matter flag in Washington, D.C. They were shoving Trump supporters with their batons, barking orders at them. And this stands in stark contrast to the largely hands-off approach they took with the American flag-burning Black Lives Matter riots. So there's definitely a bias there. Now, yesterday, we reported on how Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio was arrested, supposedly for burning a Black Lives Matter banner. and then it was reported he had 2 high-capacity magazines, which didn't make sense because he didn't have the gun to go with him. But apparently, he has been freed without bail, but he is banned from Washington, D.C. until his court date next June. So they don't want him on the ground there rallying the Proud Boys here. And it is, it's a crazy situation here. I'm watching the Fox News. Biden is calling on Trump to call for peace, but Trump already did that, so Biden's not paying attention again here. Story coming on out of Information Clearinghouse: will January 6th be the date the second U.S. Civil War begins? And I've heard conversations to the effect that we've been in a cold civil war for some years now, and this could be the day when it starts to go hot. And personally, I hope not. But on the other hand, you know, all roads lead into darkness. We can't go on living like this. We certainly can't, you know, function in a nation where the voters are just totally ignored and the government is therefore allowed to do whatever they want to us, free from the fear of losing their job some years down the road here. Another article on the same theory, again from Information Clearinghouse: America separates into 2 tribes. And they're saying, with the U.S. courts having abdicated their role in adjudicating suits in connection with the election, it seems Trump is making a last effort to change the course of events between today and the 20th of January, which is Inauguration Day. And you know, it's just getting uglier. Now, Jovan Pulitzer and his team were down in Georgia, and he offered to review the absentee ballots in Fulton County for free. And he said he could go through about 500,000 or so in the Atlanta-based county in a couple of hours and determine which were valid, which ones were fraud. Apparently, he and his associates are now being shot at. I mean, literally shot at. Bullets, you know, going through the windows of their homes here. So, I mean, it's just insane. Pardon me. Getting into other news here, over in Kenosha, the Kenosha police officer who shot Jacob Blake 7 times in August is not going to be criminally charged. There are peaceful demonstrations taking place at the moment, but it is expected things may get a little bit ugly as night comes on, and apparently the National Guard is on standby there as well. Getting back to the Breonna Taylor shooting, apparently 2 police officers have been fired on that one. Now, Jacob Blake's family is saying they're not going to back down. They're going to continue to fight for justice, you know, after the district attorney refused to prosecute the cop who shot the black man 7 times in front of his kids. Well, you know, it's lawful but awful. It's the phrase that we're hearing on the corporate media. But apparently the body camera footage did show that he was armed, that he wasn't listening to the police. And it's an ugly, ugly situation here. Now, in other news, our favorite political bartender, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is reportedly thinking about running for the Senate against Chuck Schumer in 2022. And she's, you know, being a little bit hemming and hawing about it, but she seemed to like leave Punch Bowl News with the impression that she's seriously thinking about it. Over in London, Julian Assange lost his bid to be let free on bail after almost 10 years of prison and self-imposed confinement. The judge denied bail because of the possibility of his being a flight risk. And so he's going to be in prison another 2 weeks while the United States government appeals a judge's decision to deny extradition. Let's see what's happening. They're back to the Secret Service over there. All right, getting on to COVID-19, and I have been suggesting this as a distinct possibility for some time, but we're now getting confirmation. Top epidemiologist Newt Witkowski says that the massive drop in influenza cases can be attributed to the fact that many are being falsely counted as COVID-19 cases. Now, Witkowski, who's former head of biostatistics, epidemiology, and research design at Rockefeller University, cautioned that influenza has been renamed COVID-19 in large part. According to CDC figures, the cumulative positive influenza test rate from late September into the week of December 19th was just 0.2% compared to 8.7% from a year before. And according to Witkowski, that's because many flu infections are being incorrectly labeled as COVID-19. Don't forget, there's financial inducements to generate cases, to get people on ventilators. It's a bought and paid for pandemic. Okay, story coming out of Natural News here. At least 8 people who were vaccinated for the Wuhan coronavirus, COVID-19, in the days immediately following the jab's initial release back in December, suffered severe allergic reactions that mainstream science is now claiming were caused by toxic messenger RNA nanoparticles. And this gets back to this compound polyethylene glycol, which was used as antifreeze, and it was added to the matrix structure surrounding the mRNA ingredients used in Pfizer and BioNTech's China virus jab. This is what's believed to be triggering a severe anaphylaxis, prompting experts to issue warnings about its danger. Now, polyethylene glycol has never been used before in an approved vaccine, but it is found in many drugs that have occasionally triggered anaphylaxis, potentially life-threatening reaction that causes rashes, plummeting blood pressure, shortness of breath, and a fast heartbeat. Okay, over at Twitter, they have blocked an entire medical journal's website for publishing one study proving the efficacy of ivermectin as a treatment for COVID-19. This is an anti-parasitic drug, and it's shown promise as a preventative measure for coronavirus. So Carl Denninger, known on Twitter as Ticker Guy, posted a link to a study published in the European Journal of Medical and Health Sciences that concluded that ivermectin could be as effective as pre-exposure prophylaxis against COVID-19. Only 6.9% of the study participants tested positive for the virus after taking ivermectin. On the other hand, 73.3% of those who did not take the drug tested positive. And Twitter just shut it all down. They're not just interfering with our elections, they're protecting the profits of the medical industrial complex. Story coming on out of Mercola. Basically where they're saying that this story of a mutated COVID virus is being marketed to justify new lockdowns. And the mortality data is not keeping up with the claims here. It's hardly the deadly pandemic it's been made out to be. But people are waking up to that fact, and so they're coming out with a new narrative to keep the fear-mongering going, saying there's a new, mutated, and far more infectious strain of SARS-CoV-2 on the loose, and followed that, of course, by intense lockdowns. Okay, now then, a family of a Mexican doctor who was paralyzed after the Pfizer shot is calling for additional vaccine studies. Now, Carlos Palestino, the brother-in-law of Mexican doctor Carla Cecilia Perez, paralyzed hours after receiving the Pfizer vaccine, have told Sputnik News the vaccine should be exposed to additional testing to find out whether it can cause such severe side effects. I mean, this whole fast-track thing, it hasn't been properly tested. They're using the human population as guinea pigs, to get the, to just test it on the population. And that's not how these things are supposed to be done. Anyway, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and a friendly reminder as we head into 2021 that Republic Broadcasting Network needs your support to keep on providing the information you need to have to make good choices. And so once again, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And of course, all of this information is available at the top of republicbroadcasting.org. And for all the people who are emailing me saying they cannot reach whatreallyhappened.com right now, we are under a massive DOS attack that started just about when the show went on the air. Yeah, we're just absolutely being swamped, and there's really not much I can do about it. But it's obvious that they don't want people reading what's going on in Washington, D.C. From anybody but the official sources here. Anyway, getting on back to COVID-19, Trump pointed out the actual COVID death rate according to the CDC itself, but Dr. Fauci just blasted him for it. And basically, you know, even the CDC's own admission is that only 6% of the deaths attributed to COVID were actually from COVID. You know, a lot of people, we had that story, a guy got thrown from his car in an automobile accident. He was listed as COVID death. Heart attacks are listed as COVID deaths. It's just all gigantic propaganda and hoax. Now, there's something out there. Could just be the ordinary flu. This epidemiologist may be right. It's not COVID-19. It's just the flu. And it's going around like the flu normally would do. Okay, story coming on out of Christians for Truth. Apparently, there was a study done in China of almost 10 million people centered on Wuhan, and it found that asymptomatic spread of COVID-19 does not exist, which totally undermines the need for lockdowns, which are built on the premise of the virus being unwittingly, rendered lips, spread by infectious asymptomatic people. So it's just not borne out by the data. And apparently last month, this was published in the journal Nature Communications. It was compiled by 19 scientists. It focused on the residents of Wuhan, which is still thought to be ground zero for COVID-19. And they're saying if you don't have symptoms, you're not contagious. Okay, another story, this one coming out of the Epoch Times here. The lockdown measures have been depressing for all of us. We've been talking about that for a while, and but it's having other effects as well. We're hearing from teachers saying that the remote learning isn't really working. The kids aren't responding to it. And according to this article, apparently lockdowns are proving to be catastrophic for recovering addicts and for mental health in general. And yeah, he's saying depression has skyrocketed since the lockdowns began. And, you know, I'm feeling it. Claire's feeling it. We're social people. And, you know, we've been living here for just about a year now in Santa Claus. And, you know, we see the people at the food supermarket and the post office and, you know, the hardware store, and that's about it. So it's... Anyway, all righty, getting on into the international news here. Iran is using its grip on the Strait of Hormuz to fight back U.S.-imposed sanctions. Now, this is a non-military original way of dealing with the sanctions. And apparently on January 4th, the Iranian Navy detained a South Korean-flagged oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz over an alleged environmental pollution issue. Now, the chemical tanker Hankook Chemi was inbound to Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates. And ahead of the incident, the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Naval Authority reported that an interaction between Iranian authorities and a merchant vessel led the ship to alter its course and proceed to Iranian waters. And of course, South Korea is screaming. They want the ship returned. But the fact of the matter is the Straits of Hormuz is a critical choke point. And if Iran chooses to start applying pressure there, they can cause a lot more economic damage to the rest of the world than the world can cause to Iran. Now, do you remember Daniel Ellsberg? If you're my age, you do. He was one of the whistleblowers that came on out against Richard Nixon here. And he's out there saying that a whistleblower has reported to him that Donald Trump may have a secret plan to trigger a military conflict with Iran. And he's urging government officials to leak the classified files here. And of course, Daniel Ellsberg, was key in the Pentagon Papers case. All right, we're coming up here on another commercial break, and we're going to see what's going on over here. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about Daniel Ellsberg. Apparently has got reports that Trump has a secret plan to start war with Iran. Part of it may have manifested earlier today because apparently over in New York, multiple air traffic controllers heard a threat over the aviation radios, warning that somebody was going to fly a plane into the Capitol building on Wednesday. Soleimani will be avenged. Now, so far, that, of course, has not happened. It is being investigated. And apparently, whoever broadcast it actually digitized the voice recording, so it was probably disguised as well. And another story along the same line here. This has been floating around the web for a couple of days now, where the Iran parliament votes on an official mandate to destroy Israel, and it was posted by a lot of different websites. I think it's Bex. And I think that because, first of all, Iran isn't dumb enough to do something that provocative when they are desperate to avoid war with Israel and the United States of America. So after a little checking, it turns out the story comes from a single source. And there's been no mention of it either in Press TV or Al Jazeera. So that definitely was a piece of propaganda here. Over in Qatar, the Gulf crisis is spurring them to expand their military. They've embarked on one of the most ambitious armament programs seen in the Middle East in recent times. And apparently they're going to grow their Air Force from 12 to 96 fighter jets with more on the way. And apparently the Army and Navy are also seeing rapid expansion. Everybody's arming up. They know what's coming here. Story coming on out of electronic intifada. Apparently Israel went on a demolition spree this last year, and during that same time while we were inside for the pandemic, Israel made more Palestinians homeless in 2020 than it has in year. They demolished and confiscated more than 850 Palestinian structures throughout the year, displacing 1,000 people, half of which were children. And so Israel is being Israel again. They targeted homes, agricultural buildings, infrastructure, water, sanitation facilities. And the number of demolitions last year was the highest since the United Nations Monitoring Group began keeping records in 2009, the sole exception being 2016. Story coming on out of Al Jazeera. Has a fifth-generation war started between India and Pakistan. And apparently the Brussels-based organization EU Disinfo Lab published an investigative report titled Indian Chronicles, which revealed a staggering network of misinformation and propaganda against Pakistan. The report exposed an operation that took place over 15 years in 116 countries, featuring more than 500 fake media outlets and a dozen fake NGOs. And this network pushed a pro-India and anti-Pakistan narrative in the European Union and the United Nations. Okay, so over in China, their state TV has shown off footage of Chinese troops taking part in live-fire military drills after President Xi Jinping ordered his soldiers to be ready for war at all times. Now, they've got 2 million people in uniform over there. They certainly don't have the ships to bring them over here. Meanwhile, a lot of people are, well, this is economic news, but it still involves China. And it's a forecast coming from Station Gossip that China will back down on their trade war with Australia. And that's because they're saying it really has no choice but to end its assault on Canberra in the face of increased pressure from the U.S. and other allies this year. Okay. All righty, I'm getting a message from our control room. Now, here's an interesting little story, and the spin on it is rather interesting to look at. It came out of Zero Hedge here. China's courts have just offered up the latest example of just how little the party cares about preserving human dignity and life. And what they're talking about here, China is trying to basically end public corruption, and a former chairman of one of the country's top 4 state-controlled asset managers was sentenced to death for basically accepting $277 million in bribes. And, you know, they're trying to say, oh, how could China do such a horrible thing? But, you know, let's be honest, looking at our financial class, we could use a little of that here in the United States of America. I mean, corporations commit crimes all the time, and they'll get fined, a little slap on the wrist, and whatever fines they pay, they just take off their taxes. But the executives who make those decisions never go to jail. And there's no incentive for them to clean up their act. All right. In a dramatic U-turn in U.S.-China sentiment, apparently Trump has signed an executive order banning transactions with 8 Chinese apps, including Jack Ma's Alipay. And a lot of people are wondering where Jack Ma is. They say he's laying low. And see what happens with that one here. Over in Cuba, they have formally ended their dual currency system on Friday, devaluing its peso for the first time since the 1959 revolution that put Fidel Castro into power. The government has set the exchange rate at 24 Cuban pesos to $1, and the convertible Cuban peso will be phased out completely by June, leaving the island with one currency for the first time in more than 20 years. So they're making some progress down there. Not so Macy's department stores. Macy's has notified employees at roughly 45 of their stores that the locations will shut down in the middle of this year. Now, this move is part of a plan announced by Macy's last February, before the pandemic began, to close 125 locations by 2023. Macy's said it would also cut 2,000 corporate jobs and close several offices, including one of its headquarters. One of the stores slated to close is the one on the island of Maui, but I presume the one in Aiea is still going to be open. All righty. Apparently, in anticipation of Joe Biden's immigration policies, migrants, 400 migrants, mostly from Cuba, basically stormed past the Mexican immigration and over turnstiles at the Paso del Norte Bridge, chanting Biden, Biden, just basically stampeding the border. So the flood of more migrants has already started before Biden even takes office. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines because I'm expecting a lot of phone calls now. Area code 512-248-8252. And go. This wokeness, political correctness, whatever you want to call it, is really getting out of hand. It's going by the #DisruptText campaign, and it wants to cancel classic literature in classrooms. It's all, they're making claims of racism, sexism, and the other usual complaints. But now political correctness is a reason to basically prevent young people from accessing classic literature, which we all grew up on. And they're talking about classic texts like Homer and even Shakespeare. is under attack right now. And not just Merchant of Venice. Over at the Paris Opera, they're going to bend the Nutcracker, Swan Lake, and the Yankee Princess for promoting white supremacy. And basically, the newly appointed director, Alexander Neef, is going to remove 3 of the best-known ballet choreographies from the repertoire on account of those allegedly promoting white dominance. And this, of course, is the Nutcracker, Swan Lake, and the Yankee Princess. All choreographed by the late Rudolf Nureyev, who was considered the best dancer of his generation. The conflict goes back to last September, the month when Neef was appointed director, and the artists of the Paris Opera House issued a manifesto entitled "On the Racial Issues in the Paris Opera." And they said, among other things, that performers of colored skin will refuse to be masked as white when dancing the role of the white swan. Getting that one here. Okay, we got callers on the line. Let's start taking calls. Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Just a little comment on what's going on in D.C. I'm not sure whether Antifa didn't trigger this off, whether it disguises Trump supporters or patriots. But I'll tell you this. This country is heading towards big trouble. When you steal an election the way they did, and on top of that, looks like they stole 2 more yesterday in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You ignore the rights of the people that knowing that you can't even vote with their tags out anymore, that they have it rigged. This is what happens. It's lucky these people are not really violent, because they could have taken the whole city apart had they wanted to. I mean, there's what, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions out there today. Well, they're lucky that they were that they aren't really violent. But this is also a sign, I believe, to if God forbid Biden does get the presidency, that he will, if he dares to push his nonsense around the country, whether it's lockdowns, masks, or gun confiscation, this is what, and the police want to go along with that, this is what they're going to face. And it won't be on their own grounds there, like the district. It will be in the countryside. It will be smaller towns, smaller cities, many that will have sheriff's departments that will be in collide with patriots. And probably you could have it deputize his whole county if he wants, because they are servants. They are elected directly by the people.
Yep.
And this goes to show you what they're facing. So they better heed and understand. And I don't know where this country is going. I don't know whether they're headed towards civil war, towards secession. But I'll tell you what, it's not pretty, Mike.
No, it is not.
The governor is a sorry individual. He allowed this. Looks like this election yesterday is stolen again.
Yep.
What he should do is he should not certify that election. He should do that over also, because this is not not the way to run a country.
No, it isn't.
Not right. And I just want to say something too about yesterday. After I called,
yeah,
got a couple of calls from some guy. I'm not sure. I think Hal or Al, somebody like that, and Paul from New Jersey, and they were actually saying good things about Bill Gates and about eugenics.
Yes.
To me, this is a disgrace. Eugenics is one of the words, to me, is one of the most evil things on the face of this earth. It basically says some people aren't even fit to live. Okay? And to support this kind of garbage, and even to say that people should not intermarry and this and that, my thing is, if you love somebody, if you two people in love, I think a man and a woman, obviously, and they want to get married, that's totally their business. none of anybody else's business. It doesn't hurt anybody. If anything, a lot of times when you mix different races, you get healthier offspring because you're outcrossing genes.
True.
So that's such. It really disgusted me to hear them say. But in a way, I was glad when I said that. I figured I'd bring that out in people like that. And I was right. Sure enough, eugenists are evil, Mike. Plain and simple. They're basically a form of Nazis. They really are Nazis.
Well, you've got it backwards. You've got it backwards here. Hitler got his ideas for race hygiene from the American eugenics movement of the 1930s.
Right. Including Margaret Sanger.
Yes.
All right. He got it from Margaret Sanger. And Margaret Sanger was greatly admired by the Bush family, especially Prescott Bush. Yeah, the grandfather of possibly George H.W., huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Hillary has it too, but I'm saying back then, when she was still alive and all that, and speaking, she was very close to Prescott Bush and the Rockefellers, people like that. This was one evil woman. Evil as they come. And you're right. Hitler did get a lot of ideas from people like her. Malthus is an evil philosophy. Malthusian. Okay? Basically, again, they want to select who should live and who should die, basically. Or who shouldn't be born or who should. Okay?
Yes.
It's not just racist. It's worse than racist. Okay? It is eugenics. And I don't think there's a more evil philosophy than eugenics. And Bill Gates is a eugenicist.
Yes.
Also Malthusian. And the man is, to me, the most evil man on the planet. And yet this guy, I think his name was Hal or Al, I'm not sure.
I think it was Al, yeah.
He said, okay. He actually said that he admires Bill Gates, and he actually admires Margaret Sanger. So what does that know? And Paul basically backed him up. I wasn't surprised about Paul. I've heard him before.
Yes.
He's really he's an elitist, and I'm not surprised he's a eugenist. Okay, and I just want to say that is absolutely disgusting, Mike. Really disgusting.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not even going to call these people racist. They're worse than racist. Okay, but anyway, but that's all basically. But as far as what's going on in Washington, shouldn't surprise anybody. By the way, I understand they stormed the Georgia Capitol too.
I had not heard that. I had not heard that yet.
It came on InfoWars earlier. It came on InfoWars. So, whether maybe it's a rumor, I don't know. But whatever it is, Mike, that's pretty much it. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. We got to take a break for commercials. We got more callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phone lines, over the break, I was able to confirm that, yes, there is a crowd of demonstrators around the Georgia state capitol. Some of them tried to enter to deliver written grievances, which is their right under the First Amendment. And apparently they've shut the capitol down. Everybody's been sent home. It's all locked up. And we'll see where that's going to go. But, this thing could just, flash all across the country. Depends on how angry people are. Let's go back to the phones here to Bruce in Texas. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, aloha, Mike. Hey, I'm called about the Washington, D.C. protest. I'm just going to mention Mark in North Carolina. Is that the same one that advocates for Hispanic immigration into the United States, that there'll be good Catholics or good hard workers and all that?
I'm not exactly sure. There are so many callers to keep track of.
Right. If that's the case, I'll let maybe Tom in Florida can handle that. He's pretty good at hitting on things like that. What's the opposite of eugenics, by the way? Do you happen to know? It's dysgenics.
Okay. I was going to say a wild party.
No, dysgenics. Lowering of IQ, lowering of capability, And I believe in freedom of choice. I believe that two people love each other, and if they're not the same race, well, if they happen to meet and they're actually in love with each other, I'm not against that. But also I believe in freedom of association, and you can't. The only country, it seems, in the world besides maybe China that has that is Israel.
I got a driver in the warehouse.
I just want to say I'm real proud of those people in Washington, D.C. They're putting their necks on the line.
Yes, they are.
I'm not a Trump-tard, I'm not a Trump, red hat wearer. I voted for him because the lesser of two evils. But what he has done, he's a catalyst, He's exposed the lying media, and now he's exposed, through just his being there and upsetting the establishment. He's shown just how corrupt Washington, D.C. is.
Yes,
and we do need a change, nonviolent, preferably, If it turns violent, then the only trouble with that is you need to have an outside force to help you. Even the American Revolution, we had allies on the side of the United States against Great Britain, against the crown, and I don't see that.
During the Civil War, you had a whole bunch of countries were on the side of the Confederacy, and they still managed to lose.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that you're going to win.
Nope.
But it's worth fighting for, because this is basically a banana republic with our election the way they are now. And
yes, absolutely.
And the social media giants and all that. And so this is bound to happen. And I just I'm a firm supporter of the protesters. Wish them Godspeed, and I hope that woman makes it. I heard she passed away. Hopefully that's not the case.
Which woman?
And, that's all I got there. The woman that was shot in the.
Oh, I hadn't heard.
The one woman that was shot. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope she makes
security
it
guard.
as well. All right. Thanks. We got
shot
to take
with an AR right through the glass.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. Agent provocateurs there. All righty. We got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, area code 512-248-8252. Apparently, the mayor of Washington, D.C. has ordered a 6 p.m. curfew, which is only 2 hours from now. Actually, an hour from now. They're not going to be able to get that many people out of the city by then, so I think it's more for symbolic value. We're still hoping that John Stadmiller is going to be able to call on into our program, but meanwhile, let's go back to the phones to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
I would have attended the rally in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But I was Michael, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I would have attended the rally in Washington, but I was unable to find a fish sitter to look after my goldfish, Bruno. So sadly,
Okay.
I decided to stay at home under a little blanket the whole time.
Okay.
Actually, my wife has COVID. That's the reason I didn't go.
Okay, well, that's a much more believable reason than the goldfish.
Yeah, I didn't want to spread COVID to all the people who don't believe that COVID exists, but it does exist. Anyway,
I think it's just the flu. I think what's going around is just the normal seasonal flu.
Well, I'm not going to, bother to get tested. I see no reason.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I am very pleased to see the non-fair weather Trump supporters out there doing the good work.
Yes.
And I congratulate them for storming the Capitol. I liked it. It's too bad they didn't storm it in even bigger numbers so they can, have a sit-in. And basically, too bad they didn't bring handcuffs and cuff themselves to the seats and the chairs and try to stay as long as possible and just really, instead of occupying Wall Street, occupy Washington. I would have loved to have seen it.
I would have loved to have seen that too, but the night is still young. The night is still young, and we don't know what the protesters are going to do or what the agent provocateurs are going to do. The fact that somebody managed to get an AR-15 close enough to the Capitol building to take a shot through the window, that just absolutely reeks of being a planted agent.
Yeah, well, the person who they claim was shot, there was a woman who was supposedly shot. She was shot by the Capitol Police from inside the Senate building, shooting through the glass door that they had barricaded. That's what the videos are showing now.
Okay, all right. Well, I take I take that back about the planted agent, but guys, check your targets. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But otherwise, I just want to say that I'll call again some other day to take on Mark over his anti-eugenics remarks. Okay? But thank you, Michael.
Oh. All right, you got it here. We're going to go to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. What's on your mind today?
Well, how you doing, Michael? Good day. Yeah, Michael, it's on my mind is what is going on down in this country. Before I start hitting on a few people, I want to talk in one guy from Carolina. I just want to say this, Mike. I've been telling you for a while that no matter what you do for the Afro-American community, and President Trump's done quite a bit, they still, they shoot them down at all costs as far as, look at Georgia. I mean, he did a lot for them there. From what I know, it looks like the exit polls right now, all these Democrats got like 97% of the black vote on both these, Warnock and Orloff got 97% of the black female vote. So no matter what Trump does, it's not going to ever be enough, Mike. And I don't care what Republican does. It's the same about all these illegal immigrants coming in here, these illegal aliens. Mike, let's ask ourselves this. Before they came here, California would vote predominantly Republican, white,
Yes.
Conservative. Detroit, Michigan was at one time a conservative place until they did integration. Okay? Integration and immigration have destroyed this country to no end. And it's going to only get worse from here now because we do have the Bolshevik communists and now we're going to be in the Senate. We got Kamala Harris who's going to be presiding as the tiebreaker. Mike, we're in a major catastrophe. We're in a disaster zone. And, a guy in Carolina said, well, immigration is horrific for this country. It's horrific for the white Americans who can't get good hospitalization. I can vouch for that, Mike. I can vouch for a lot of stuff. I've already told you what happened here in South Florida. There's not one white male or female on the Miami-Dade County Commission. Broward County only's got 4 left, Mike. Palm Beach is not far behind. This is not here to come and compliment. This is here to come and take your lunch and take your lunch. You take your job and eat your lunch. This is how bad this has gotten. It's off to the charts. But I'll tell you this, Mike. What's going on in Washington? A lot of this is Antifa. This is George Soros. He should have been arrested. I told you a year ago that Donald Trump should have went in and arrested him at all costs. Soros and all these scum and that Steyer and all these criminals who are so hateful toward white Anglo male staff. And let's not kid ourselves. You got white rhinos that are disgraceful. Look at the Bushes. Look at how disgraceful they are in Georgia. What they've done in Georgia, the whites stabbing each other in the back, left and right, constantly, in and out, in and out. Like what I call your show, Mike. You got your guys on there that are shrills. They don't like what I got to say, but I tell it from the heart. I tell it from my brain. I use both. I combinate them, and I say, hey, man, this is wrong. It's called justice for all. We don't have justice for all in this country anymore.
No, we don't.
We just don't have it. And we don't have look, nobody's got arrested with this Durham report and this Bill Barr. All this stuff has been a big cabal run by Zog. The whole thing is like a science fiction movie. That's what it is. It's unbelievable. It's like 1984. It's unreal what's happening in the United States. And look what's going on in this election in Georgia, Mike. Kelly Loeffler lost to a guy, a reverend. That guy's no reverend. A guy that wants abortion. He's a reverend. He's a preacher man, a man of the cloth. Are you kidding me? And the people voted for him. And Mike, to the life of me, Mike, I want you to answer this to me and your audience. Do you think that the Democratic white women are pushing these people over the top? What's your opinion on it, Mike? I don't know.
Well, again, you're going from numbers that we know are already suspect. And so we really can't do any kind of an in-depth analysis of who was voting for who and what they were voting for because the numbers are made up. The runoff election in Georgia was just as fraudulent as the general election last November, and we're getting absolutely we're getting that all over.
Well, Mike, I hope, there's a couple callers, I'm pretty sure back in the day, they know about Detroit and how great it was as a city before, pre 67 riots, 65, whatever riot it was. And, my dad was from Detroit, and I remember he was a kid. He told me how wonderful Detroit was back in the 30s. And, look at it. Look at it. Look, there's an example of what the white Northern European culture has allowed to happen to its own country. And that one caller, you had a couple of calls back saying that we may need another country to intervene in if we get into a civil war. I don't believe so. I believe there's plenty of white males in this country can handle the situation. If they really believe in the Constitution, Mike, and they love the Bill of Rights, and they loved our Constitution and our founding fathers. After all, this is all about what their vision was, our founding fathers.
Tom, that sounds really good, but the harsh reality is that somebody is going to have to come up with, heavier weapons, for, our side, if you will, in the Civil War, because, the government has been spending your money to arm themselves with all kinds of armored vehicles and, area denial weapons and tanks and planes and stuff. And, a civil war is going to require things like man pads and rocket-propelled grenades. And, it's not something that we can really make in our basement.
Mike, you know what movie I saw the other day? I'm sure you saw it many years ago. It was a great actor in it. It was called The Omega Man. Did you ever see the movie The Omega Man?
I remember that. Charlton Heston.
Okay, well, yes, that was a great movie. I watched it the other night. And, man, that movie was made back in the 60s, and that movie came to a fruition with this Wuhan flu. I mean, The Omega Man is a great – I recommend everybody to watch that movie and tell me that ain't going to maybe be the outcome of this country. That's that's the weapon. You want a weapon, they dropped a weapon right there on us. Donald Trump was doing great in this election up until that Wuhan flu hit here last December. And, Trump did everything he could to keep these Chinese from coming in here. But the Democrats wanted them all. They're racist. You white racist, white, big, fat, white, orange man. You're a racist. And look what's going on. And then, I saw the Omega Man the other day, Mike. I was like, wow, this is too much. And, of course, and if you remember the movie, he has an interracial kiss. That was the first interracial kiss on the big screen. Did you know that?
Yeah. Can you tell me the first interracial kiss on regular TV?
Probably couldn't tell you that. I think maybe
the original Star Trek.
Star Trek. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say so, like a science. Yeah. I was gonna say like something like the Twilight Zone or something.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. Star Trek. Okay. Well, I didn't know that, but the Omega Man was a really good movie, and it's like, man, that was like, wow, this is what happened here now, right, Mike? Because Trump was doing great. The economy was doing great. Now the gas in South Florida already went up 35 cents in the last 3 months.
Going up here too.
And I think it's going to, and it's, it's all Trump. Trump did this. Trump has been the greatest president I can remember as far as the economy goes. For a couple of years, everything was going great for me, but now it's going to be a disaster. So I don't know. It's off the chain. And, the healthcare is terrible here in South Florida now, Mike. It's gotten ridiculous. It's terrible. I mean, even a good hospital, you have to wait. It's unbelievable. And, I don't even want to go there. Jackson Hospital, the county hospitals, these county hospitals have so many illegals in there from all of these different countries. It's unbelievable. It's like the United Nations in there. And they're getting better health care than a white American or Afro-American who's been here for quite a long time, family. It's unbelievable. They're getting better health care. And that right there, look at California, Mike. It's shot. California's got almost 9 million illegals. And Trump blew this election when he didn't arrest the mayor that time in Oakland, California. If he would have showed right there that he means business with this immigration invasion, people would have came out. Even the Afro-Americans would say, hey, Trump's trying to save our jobs. Can you not let all these illegals come here taking the jobs away from black Americans? I don't hear none of these black gentlemen that called your show talk about that. How many blacks have actually lost jobs or couldn't get a good paying job because of illegal aliens, Mike? It's unbelievable.
It's probably a lot. It's probably a lot. And that's one of the reasons, the statistic that I mentioned yesterday, 35% of Americans are now on some form of welfare or food assistance. I mean, that's Depression era statistics.
Yes. Mike, and if somebody gave me $200,000, I only had to pay $2,000 back over a 10-year period. You wouldn't think that wouldn't be fantastic for all Americans in this country?
Oh, it would be. It absolutely would be. I'd restart my animation company.
Yes. Hey, Mike, by the way, did you see that big comment that's flying around? They say that if somebody could harness the iron and the iron copper on that thing, it'd be worth 70,000 times the economy of all the countries put together?
Yeah, it's an asteroid. It's not a comet. Yes, it's an asteroid. And
I mean, an asteroid.
all kinds. I mean, there's all kinds of amazing stuff out there in the asteroid belt and the Oort cloud. And as soon as somebody is able to start actually turning a profit, you're going to see space travel, take off the way it did, after the Wright brothers' first flight. And then, of course, World War I didn't hurt that. And then the commercial aviation industry took off, and all of a sudden you could make money with airplanes, and people started building larger and more capable aircraft.
Well, Mike, I think pretty soon they're going to have to colonize Mars, because maybe they'll put all the Democrats over on Mars, or all the Republicans will have to go to Mars, and the Democrats. I don't know what's going to happen. This thing's going to turn out insane now and here in the next month.
Well, Elon Musk is already planning a Martian city.
Yeah, well, I wish I was younger. I'd volunteer to go, but I'm
ditto. I'd be the top radio host on the entire planet.
Mike, one more thing. Do you think Trump's going to walk away out of on the January 20th, or what do you think is going to happen with that? What do you think is going to end up potentially happening with Trump?
Well, I don't think he's going to show up for the inauguration. He's got every right to be angry over what was done to him. I've heard one report that he's going to fly to Scotland and just take a long golfing weekend.
Right. Well, I have a feeling that maybe I think maybe Don Jr. might run for some kind of office, his daughter-in-law. So it's going to be a real amazing next 2 to 4 years. I think I think this country is going to have a rude awakening. And like you said earlier in your show, Mike, the media is so corrupted, but Trump has exposed them for what they really are. He's really exposed these criminals, and Zog's big partners in this. Big. Well, if not, they don't run.
Big. I've heard a report that Ivanka is thinking about getting into politics now.
Well, yes. Well, she just may, and she'll have the backing of the Jews. That's for sure. Let's not kid herself there, Mike. She'll have Kirshner and all that. So we'll see. But what they've done to Trump, I totally believe, Mike, is a fallacy. I mean, it's disgraceful what they've done to him.
Well, it delegitimizes the presidency and, by extension, the entire government itself. And I withdraw consent.
Yes, totally. And we'll see how it plays out. But I don't know. You've been saying it for a long time, Mike, that they should have cleaned up this election fraud from 2 years ago. I remember you kept saying you better clean up this election, or they're going to steal it. And man, if your prediction wasn't right, to the money.
Boy, I hate being right all the time.
Well, you were. I guess you're Mensa. But Mike. Anyway, I know you got other callers, so thanks for taking my call. And to the guy in Carolina, well, you know what? Immigration is not the right thing. We need a zero immigration policy, a moratorium for 10 years, but we'll never get with these Democrats. There are already over hundreds of thousands illegals from Central America at that border. Wait for Biden to take January 21st. Mike, I think this is just the opening salvo of what's going to happen, because all these groups in this country have got to unite, and they got to say, no, man, we're not going to allow this. The borders are not going to be breached. We're not going to allow people to keep coming in all these states to turn them blue. Look, Georgia. They've been saying it. I was listening to another show yesterday. The Chinese are moving into Georgia like crazy. They're the second biggest minority group after the blacks now over there.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese, not the Mexicans, the Chinese. So there you go.
But the Chinese, those are legal immigrants, aren't they?
I suppose so. I'm not 100%. I suppose they are, but they're just the demographic is they want to go, and they vote Democratic. They're Democrats basically.
Yes.
Not get ourselves so what are you going to do? And we just got to hope and pray that some kind of miracle can come down as far as the country don't go in all out civil war, Mike. But I hate to say it, but I think something really big's gonna go down. It might be a false flag. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something that I don't know. I don't know how it's going to be handled. It's going to be unbelievable. Well, that young lady that got shot today, I'm saying a prayer for her, because she didn't deserve that. That's nonsense.
Yeah, I'm looking at Somebody just sent me a story from the Gateway Pundit that the gunshot may have been fatal, and I'm going to look at that on the upcoming break here. So thank you for the phone call. Let's switch over to Dan in Washington State. And Dan, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for taking the call. I just had to respond to the caller from North Carolina. There's a few points when people talk about how evil the Nazis were all the time, I really question their knowledge of history. This knowledge and you yourself have questioned the numbers of the Holocaust.
Yes.
And if you look into it, even these stories about Joseph Mengele and the lampshades made out of Jews, and all this stuff is false, really.
Yeah.
So, so the caller, it does show that he has a complete lack of real knowledge of what happened then. And I think he is listening to too much Alex Jones. And anyway, the Nazis were for nationalism. They wanted to dominate Europe, but they weren't trying to kill everyone that's not white or had blue eyes. That's just our propaganda. As you can see, because they sided with Japan and half the Middle East and half of Europe. So,
one of the driving forces for World War II, I mean, Germany was focused on rebuilding its industry and economy after World War I, but they got rid of the private central bank imposed by the Treaty of Versailles. And at that point, the rest of the world's bankers declared an economic boycott against Germany, which basically Germany interpreted as an act of war. And that really kind of, set it off here. As I mentioned, I think just yesterday, Winston Churchill, when he was doing his radio broadcast before World War II, was saying, if Germany is allowed to prosper, it's a threat to Great Britain. Dan, I got to put you on hold. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be back with more phone calls after these two words. Welcome back to our show here. And I got a story about what happened. Apparently, there was a female Trump supporter who was standing behind a group of people that were trying to get into the Capitol building, and the Capitol Police basically opened fire. So they've drawn first blood, and they've provided the first martyr to the patriot cause. So bad move, I think. Absolutely bad move here. All right, we're going to go back to Dan in Washington. And Dan, you want to finish up?
Yeah. Well, I just wish everybody good luck in Washington, D.C. I was actually pretty impressed and kind of excited that they kind of stormed the White House there. But
they didn't storm the White House. They stormed the Capitol building.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I would. The caller real quick says Margaret Sanger's evil. Okay. So if you actually go back and look at what she's saying, what's wrong with mild eugenics, where you actually promote the more educated, healthier people in society versus the unhealthy, uneducated? And Margaret Sanger did work with black groups to help them improve, because if you go back to those days when every woman was popping out 8 kids with no birth control, and say 2 retarded people or mentally disabled had a kid, do you want that, or is it better for society to basically, I can understand their points of view in some ways.
Well, I understand why they think the way that they think. But again, as we saw when Hitler adopted the eugenics theories of 1930s America, he immediately abused them. And you need to remember that when Planned Parenthood was started, it was targeting the black population for abortions.
Well, blacks, we know, have a higher birth rate, though, and that's what Margaret Sanger was saying. We need to keep things kind of stabilized, and that's what family planning is. But my bottom line is, with Margaret Sanger, if you compare her to, say, Mother Teresa.
Okay.
Mother Teresa is in India, who has a massive overpopulation problem. Her main goal is just to get Catholics to outbreed each other, telling the Indians not to use birth control, to have as many kids as possible. So Margaret Sanger was a much more humane, intelligent person, in my view, than Mother Teresa. So,
well, Mother Teresa was merely echoing the position of the Catholic Church as a whole at that time.
Right. And that's because they're just more concerned with world domination, I think, that Catholics outbreed everyone versus the standard of life.
And it keeps those collection plates full.
Right. So that's all that's about. So, and you compare like India to China. in China probably practices mild eugenics, and they have a stable population. And India's just it's kind of a disaster. Real quick, one more point.
Yeah.
College loan. We've had diseugenics. We've had
Yes.
the college loan program is the biggest diseugenics thing, having all these girls in college debt when they should be having kids. The feminist propaganda.
Well, wait a minute. We're getting into an area where you're trying to tell people, women specifically, what they should be doing, and I think that's going to draw, probably a negative reaction in this day and age.
Well, I would argue that they've been told from grade 1 on that they should be going to college and getting a job and not having kids. That's part of the cultural Marxist program, and of a lot of it is, and there is a Jewish strategy here I see, because the eugenics of Israel are actually just as strict, if not stricter, than the Nazi SS. So I feel like the caller from North Carolina,
part is true, yeah.
He was Jewish before. Yeah, and I think, I don't mind Jewish people calling in the show, but it seems like he has a sort of anti-white point of view, and you can tell. So he's not on our side, and he's going to look for any reason to undermine white people. That's my point of view. So anyway, have a good day, and I wish everyone good luck in Washington, D.C. Thanks.
Well, I do too, and I hope nobody else gets shot or killed. But again, the night is still young, and I'm not seeing any signs of anybody getting ready to leave in obedience to the curfew order here. We're almost on a commercial break, so I'm going to hold off more phone calls and just fill you with a little bit more news here. Apparently, Bill Gates is pushing this new industry of laboratory-grown meat, call it Soylent Red, I guess, and to basically end livestock production as being bad for the environment here. And I think, this is the corporatization of food. They don't want you able to produce your own food. They want you dependent on a food industrial complex to further bleed labor and wealth out of you here. And apparently Twitter has announced that any talk of food shortages will be censored. To me, that's a warning that we're about to see food shortages, and, stockpile now while you still can. We got to take a break for commercials, more phone calls when we come back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Kelly in Austin. Kelly, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hey, that first interracial kiss on television was between Kirk and Uhuru.
Yes.
Yeah, and that Uhuru, by the way, is Swahili for peace. I've been to Kenya many times. I've been to Uhuru Park in the middle of Nairobi many times as well. And that's where she got the name Uhuru.
Yes.
On the television series. As of today, I am no longer a Republican.
Okay.
I and millions of other Republicans have been stabbed in the back by Mitch McConnell and Tom Cotton and other rhinos who have bailed out and told us that we mean nothing to them.
Yes.
And so I'm going to join this caravan to start a new political party called the MAGA Party. You might have heard about that.
Yes, I did.
I think it's going to pull many people out of the Republican Party and away from the Democrat Party, and the objective is to fracture both of those parties. And I think it can be done.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I am absolutely disgusted with the leadership in the Republican Party.
Yes.
Mitch McConnell has stabbed everyone in the back. Mitch McConnell has deep economic ties to China. And he will not sever those ties because he knows that's going to affect his bottom line.
Yes.
Mitch McConnell is lined up with the people who are lining his pocket, and then these other rhinos who are lining up against us as well are doing the same thing. And what it says here is just as George Carlin says in one of his videos. It's a big party, and you ain't in it. We're not part of it. We're just being kicked around, and these people in D.C., the people we send to D.C. who are supposed to represent us, they work for us, are in fact taking advantage of their positions in politics to enrich themselves and to enslave the rest of us. And I am tired of it. I've voted Republican all my life. I've never voted for a Democrat, and I won't vote for a Democrat, but I've had it with the damn Republican Party. I've had it with Mitch McConnell. I've had it with this jackass, John Cornyn, the senator from Texas.
Yes.
I've had it with you, and I'm not going to vote for you again. Period. I'm going to write to my congressman and tell him that I am sick of you people. You have betrayed us. You have stabbed us in the back, and I can no longer trust you to do what is in the best interest of your constituents. You are traitors to this country. I like what I saw happening in D.C. today. I frankly wish that the protesters had burned the damn Capitol building down. That would have been a profound statement of rebellion against a corrupt government. This government has become absolutely corrupt.
Yes, it is.
And I cannot believe that it has taken this much time for people to realize, or a fraudulent election for people to realize how corrupt the government actually is. This government has not represented the interest of the American people for decades, for at least the last 50 years. The people we have sent to Washington have routinely betrayed us.
Yes.
And right now, it ought to be painfully apparent to everyone that this government is not interested in the well-being of the average American. The people we sent to Washington.
Well, they're free of the voters now. They can do what they want and not be afraid of losing their job.
That's exactly right. Right. And you look at Turtlehead, Mitch McConnell, who fatuously says that the election was not stolen. Mitch, the evidence is right under your nose. But you've got too much at stake in the matter. And so you won't acknowledge it. Anyway, I'm distressed. I'm seriously distressed. If I could get out of this country right now and just go somewhere else like Costa Rica, I might do it. Just to get away from this.
I've heard good things about Costa Rica. Unfortunately, Claire and I are too broke and too old to make that move. But, life is pretty good here in Santa Claus.
Well, you're in a good place up there in Indiana.
Yes. But, I got a call from an old friend in Hawaii, and he says things are just going downhill there so fast.
Oh, I bet they are. I hope what I see today grows. I hope this explodes, and I hope to see people storming state capitals across the country. I want to see these state capitals burned down. I want to see politicians dragged out onto the street and beaten for what the hell they've done to this country. Good Lord. And I want to see people like Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and that damn Jew Charles Schumer just raked across the coals. They have screwed this country.
Yes.
Good Lord. They want to sell us out to the goddamn Chinese, to the damn Chinese communists. And they want to put a Chinese communist stooge in office like Joe Biden. For crying out loud, how stupid can we be as a country if we allow that to happen? We have got to use this right now as a springboard to launch a revolution, a rebellion to stop this in its tracks. Okay, I've said enough.
Well, I wish there was an alternative. I really do. I've spent more than 2 decades trying to guide this country back to the constitutional republic it used to be. But right now, all paths are leading into darkness, and I understand everybody who calls up calling for revolution or secession or rebellion. They're basically down to what other choice do they have? It's like John Kennedy said, when peaceful revolution is impossible, violent revolution is inevitable.
We have no other choices. I called you yesterday. I told you I thought the country's going to fracture.
Yep.
And what you're saying today, I think, is the first step toward that fracture. These bastards shot a woman and killed her today.
Yeah.
Why? She might become the first martyr in the revolution.
I think that just happened.
She may be forever remembered that way. Yeah. I can never forgive them for that. I can never forgive them for that. These bastards in the capitalist police turned their guns on an American citizen and shot her for no good reason. What can you say about that? This is absolutely, it's appalling. It's appalling.
Yes.
So from really here on, I think there's really no other path. There's no path other than a revolution. We've got to take this government back. We've got to tear it. We've got to wrest it back from the people who have stolen from us, and we have got to reform it. And that means we have got to kick people like Charles Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell out of government. And we have got to put people back in who are true constitutionalists.
I agree. Absolutely agree.
Okay, Mike. I've said enough today. Thank you much. Thanks for
All right, well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Melissa in Maryland. Hello, Melissa. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi there. Okay. Well, I have a little silly thing for you.
Okay.
I have a suggestion of how Texas got its name. Do you know how Texas got its name? Because I'll give you my version.
Well, give us your version.
My version is that they decided not to name a state Taxes, T-A-X-E-S, and they took out the A and put an E in there.
Well, that's a good theory.
Okay. All right. Question number 2 is, can you tell me if there is a list, if there is a website with a list? What I've been looking for is some of the legislators. I don't consider this a done deal. Some of the legislators have come on record and said that they're going to oppose the election results.
Yes.
That they are going to object to the implementation of the election results. And, one House, one Senate, so, we understand that. But do we have a list of the ones that are a firm no? Do we have a list of the ones that are a yes? And do we have a list of the ones that are undecided? So that if we want to spend 12 or 24 hours calling their offices, then we will use our time wisely instead of doing a crapshoot.
Well, I believe earlier today I posted a list of the no's to whatreallyhappened.com, and after the show is over, I'll hunt it down and put it up to the top of the main page again. I'll bump it up there so you can look at it. To best of my knowledge, there is no list of the undecided, and as far as determining those who want to certify Biden, it's basically everybody else in the Congress. And unfortunately, the way it works, the representatives and the senators who are objecting to Biden's electors, there are not enough of them to have the election declared null and void.
Okay, I get that. What I'm also, see, my position is, I'm not suggesting that nobody should call a no office. I'm not suggesting that just the yeses and the undecided. Well, obviously, if they're willing to object, you don't have to give them a call. If they're undecided, if they're on the fence, then it's worthwhile to call them. But I guess I would also say that if they have said no, they're not going to object, unless it's somebody who's obvious. Mm-hmm. Then I would say just go ahead and what do you have to lose by calling them? But there are obvious ones, like, if Barbara Mikulski were to still be in office, I think that it would be futile to call her. But okay, so yeah, that's what I'm looking for is a solid, up to date list of those that are worthwhile to spend time, trying to get a hold of, But okay, so
all
you're
right. Well,
saying
I'll try and find a list like that for you. Okay, and I'll put it up at whatreallyhappened.com.
Thank you. Keep up the good work. Bye.
Thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Today's a very sad day.
Yes.
Kerry said a lot of things that I wanted to say, and I got in a little late in the show. And I mean, these people in D.C., they're patriots. Plain and simple, They are patriots. And, we're not far off from a day when this evil, corrupt corporate media will be referring to the founding fathers as domestic terrorists.
Yes.
The government is out of control, and Kerry mentioned the Capitol Police protecting these globalist traitors, protecting them and shooting this innocent woman. They're despicable in my eyes. This government has no legitimacy. What these people are doing, they should be applauded, not condemned by this. But of course, what do you expect from the corporate media? I too was hoping they would burn that Capitol building to the ground and drag every last one of those globalist traitors out by their hair and beat them to a pulp. They've destroyed this country, these people. And you're right when a lot of the callers say, what other solution is there? They've taken the electoral solution out of our hands.
Yes.
It's this outright thievery now and theft. People like McConnell and McCain before him, they didn't have to worry about what the voter sentiment was. They just stole the election outright. So what option does that give the people? The people who are sane and not on the other side of this divide. It's unfortunate and sad that the only option is revolution. I think that's the only language these people in Washington understand, and maybe as well in these state capitals. This is just, I watched the video yesterday on the Paul Craig Roberts site, had a link to the Battle of Athens in Athens, Tennessee, where these World War II vets took it upon themselves to bring order and legitimacy to these elections in that one county in Tennessee.
Yes,
it's gotten out of control. The corruption. I mean, this was inevitable. What happened today, and I too am surprised that it took so long. But God bless every last one of those people in D.C. I mean, listening to Kerry, I was almost brought to tears. Because the country that I grew up in doesn't exist anymore.
I agree.
And I too am at a point where I feel like maybe I should just turn my back on this country and leave.
A lot of people are.
I'll just leave it at that, Mike. But God bless callers like Kerry and Tom, who real patriots, who that's all I want to say. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you for the call, and we have Dustin in New Jersey. Dustin, long time. I put your face on a milk carton. What's on your mind today?
It's on Mars, Mike, with the Galactic Federation.
Ah, okay.
They turned me in for a shekel.
Yes.
Mike, you guys realize you're all wrong. Trump knows he lost more than a month ago. Look, guys, it's about the art of the deal, man. It's the art of the steal. It's the art of the con. Mike, you know this. His wife was looking for a school for what's their son's name?
Barron.
Exactly. This is all bunk, guys. Okay. They're using this for.
I have to disagree with you, Dustin. I have to disagree with you.
Mike.
Trump, for somebody who knows he's lost, he's put on a really, really good fight. But the entire government and corporate media are allied against him. And one of our earlier callers is correct in saying that Trump is a catalyst in that now the American people are seeing just how corrupt the election system is, how corrupt the government is, how corrupt the corporate media is. And this is going to be the beginning of the end.
Is Trump corrupt?
Probably. I mean, the whole system is corrupt, and corrupt likes corrupt, but he was corrupt in the wrong direction.
Mike, you heard of American-made media consultants, right?
Yes.
That was Jared Kushner and Trump's family.
Yep.
Siphoning money from all the money they made from, like the lawsuit money they're bringing in, over $700 million.
Yes.
They're the freaking Washington Generals. But nevertheless, this can't stand. I'm sorry that this poor woman got shot. But
yes.
If it's right now, just take off your masks, people. Don't take orders from these people anymore. Don't send in your tax money. Don't listen to their crap. Turn off this Zio media, which has sold all this crap. These billionaire Zionists that control everything that we see, and have allowed this to happen. It's not China. It's them. Without the media and without the banks, none of this would have happened.
True.
China's just a symptom. They're just the next highest bidder. But I mean, they control everything that we see, that we hear, that we read. They control it all. And we'll be hearing about how this woman was, a fire on her hair terrorist and whatever. Well, whatever it is that suits their purpose. She was carrying 5 AR-15s, and it will be spun to death.
Yes, it will be.
And just like, and by who? By the same people that have attacked Trump day and night for 5 years now.
Yes.
And the same people who even on comedy shows, where which is like an in-kind contribution, right?
Yes.
All these network shows that go on that have supposed to have nothing to do with politics, that's all they do is attack him. And that didn't take place under Obama. That didn't take place under Bill Clinton. But it sure takes place under Republicans. So and it's really even hard to say that they are Republicans. I mean, this is matrix stuff, and the matrix is held by the people that control everything that we see and hear and read, and they control the money that we see, even the parameters of our own religion. There's the New Testament about them, and there's the Old Testament about them. The Old Testament written by them, the New Testament written by them. The whole paradigm is controlled by them. So it is what it is. But man, they have it in for us big time, and they're trying to turn the races against each other and slice and dice everybody up from
men and women against each other, gays and straights against each other.
That's right.
Dogs and cats against each other.
That's right. That's exactly right. So it's time. The only thing we have left is massive and complete civil disobedience. And if that doesn't work, then hey, listen, it's on like popcorn, man. It's on like popcorn.
Well, I never thought I'd live to see this day, but here it is, and it's scaring me. Of course, with my age and infirmities, in the event of civil war, I'm a hostage.
Mike, I don't know if you remember or not, but I talked about this in June, and I said that this is going to come down to shooting by December, and I missed it by 6 days. And here we go. But it's inevitable. I mean, Pence wasn't going to do anything. He'll collect intergenerational.
He's already issued a statement that he's not going to block Biden's electors. But, Pence sold out.
Yeah. He'll get big money for doing nothing.
Got to let you go. End of the show here. My apologies to those people waiting on hold. Please call back tomorrow. I'm sorry we did not get the expected call from John Stadmiller. Stay tuned for his show. I actually do not know who is doing. Chris Hinckley is taking over John's show. So spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. It's very, very critical. Apparently the phone lines coming in from D.C. are just garbage and overloaded here. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.